Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at EX8, and EX8 offers us lots of new and powerful tools in order to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be looking at is going to be the brand new Deep Savers deck. So, Deep Savers is kind of a weird deck because it has the ability to do quite a lot, but if I had to kind of pick a category for it, it would be a aggro control deck because on the lower levels it wants to attack fast, hit hard, and has the ability to unsuspend with jamming, so that way you could attack multiple times while climbing up your stages, and then when you get into the higher end, that's kind of where the damage seems to stop for the most part. And then the high-end cards in the big boss monster wants to be a good floodgate to kind of lock the opponent out of, well, actually being able to contest with the board that you built, so that way you could use the board that you built the following turn or turns to be able to find that extra damage to close out the game with. So when it comes to the deck itself, there is just a lot of intricacies that could be played with the deck because of all of the different archetypes and colors that it's playing in, and because it's primarily blue-based, it already has some pretty decent consistency and memory management. But for the most part, when it comes to the actual mechanics that the deck is trying to work with, it's very similar to Nature Spirits, in which it wants to try to play out lots of bodies. This time being in blue, it's doing it in the classic blue fashion of using its inheritable sources to split them out to make new Digimon. And then it could use that as a secondary resource to put them back in for various other abilities, or just use that to, well, build an actual second stack and be able to do what the deck is trying to do when it comes to building up its board state. And then when it comes to the biggest weaknesses of the deck, similarly to Nature Spirits, it does have a lot of colors that it's trying to play around with, and a lot of mechanics that it's trying to play around with, and a lot of archetypes as well, so it could be a little bit inconsistent or not super cohesive at times when it comes to just how the deck is able to flow and function, because at the end of the day, the deck really just cares about Deep Savers, but there's not enough Deep Savers and not enough good at Deep Savers to really make a fully cohesive deck. So that's kind of where we do have to fill in the gaps a little bit. And there's those inconsistencies in those gaps that we're trying to fill. But when it comes to just some other general weaknesses, it is pretty weak to floodgates because of the fact that it doesn't really have the ability to remove the opponent's Digimon, and it also has no real protections. So anything against hard or even some good soft removal, and you just kind of fold to. So keep that in mind when you're going into building this deck, because there is just a lot that this deck can do. But at the end of the day, I do think this is going to be a more casual deck, but that doesn't stop it from being a really fun and strong deck either way, with lots of fun parts, pieces, and playline. So with all that said and done, let's just dive right into the deck profile and see what we're working with. So starting off with the Digitamas, I am aware that there is a Deep Saver Digitama. You're more than welcome to use it. I just don't think it's that good, and instead I'm just going to try to run the deck mono blue, so that way I have, well, better cards that I could be running, like the BT7 Bukamon, because the deck does have cards that want to split out Digimon from its inheritables, and Bukamon rewards us with that type of playline by giving us some extra memory to play around with. And then when it comes to the level 3s, I'm going to be running the two main in-archetype level 3s. So yes, these can also digivolve on top of the Deep Savers, but that doesn't matter because we're just all blue. So Gamamon is going to be the deck's dedicated digging or searching tool, where it's looking specifically for Deep Saver traded cards, Sea Beasts, or Plesiosaurs, which is really awkward of a searcher considering a lot of the good blue cards are going to be Aquatics. So it's not necessarily a must-have card, and this is easily one of the Deep Savers that you could kind of cut, but it does allow us to be able to want to try to find our other Deep Savers cards at the very least. then its inheritable ability is pretty simple. We've seen this on a couple of other cards before, where it's just when attacking, if we have 7 or fewer cards in our hand, we get to draw 1 for some added consistency. Then, when it comes to Crapmon, he has the on-play ability where one of our Digimon gains blocker until the end of the opponent's turn, which is really good at setting up good defensive lines of play, because we do at least have battle immunity available to us in this deck, so we could use that in combination with blocker to make an unkillable blocker by battle. And then its inheritable ability is really important, which is going to be jamming, so that way our attacks onto the opponent's security are going to be safe regardless of our DP. And that's kind of why I'm also running the 2 copies of Betamon from BT15, is for that same inheritable ability, while also having another ability that activates when our Digimon is going to be playing out Digimon by card effects. So this card can stop the opponent from being able to attack, which could be pretty helpful at keeping their board locked down as much as possible. And then the last 2 rookies could really just be anything you want. I'm just choosing to run a floodgate because, well, we're in blue. Blue has access to lots of good floodgates, so it just makes sense to want to run the best floodgate currently, which is going to be 2 copies of the BT6 Madoki Betamon, because stopping the opponent from gaining memory is really important at slowing them down. Then when it comes to the level 4s, I'm going to be still kind of just keeping it simple for the most part and running a decent amount of deep savers. So that's going to be the 1 copy of Dolphmon and the 4 copies of the EX08 Seadramon. So the EX08 Dolphmon is in here because it does have a pretty decent evolution cost, evoing for 1 versus the usual 2. Then it also can Digivolve on top of Deep Savers, which doesn't matter because we're all blue, and it has that same inheritable ability as we saw with Gomamon, so it just allows us to be a little bit more consistent. Then when it comes to the EX08 Seadramon, this is the key linchpin to how the deck wants to work, because this is going to be one of our big combo enablers to go up into our higher stages that much more efficiently, because not only does he have the inheritable ability of jamming, but he also has a really good when attacking ability where we get to just gain a memory. So this allows us to want to actually start swinging as early as our level 4s, so that way we could take advantage of this ability, especially in combination with jamming, to try to get as much tempo as quickly as possible. Then when it comes to the other level 4 of the deck, you can kind of just run whatever you feel like you want to run. I do know Promo Seadramon's pretty good for this deck, but I also think that BT15 Seadramon does just as good as a job because it natively has the Rush ability, which is really good to close out games with, especially if we have abilities to play it out for free. Then we can attack with it right away as a good game finisher. And it also has that inheritable ability of jamming, again, in case we're missing it. So that way, we have as many instances of this ability as we possibly can. Then when it comes to the level 5s, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Waymon. It's not my favorite card. We're not really trying to line up the DNA, but it at least can Digivolve for a little bit cheaper on top of our Deep Savers. But it also has a nice on-play and when Digivolving ability where we get to place 1 Digimon with Deep Savers in its traits from our trash to the bottom of this Digimon's Digivolution source, so that way we could gain access to whatever ability that we kind of just want to try to use. Then it even has a nice end of attack ability, which we're not likely to use, but it could still come up, where we get to play a play cost of 5 or lower Digimon with Deep Savers in its traits from this Digimon's Digivolution source for free. So again, it just allows us to split our stacks and be able to go as wide as possible to use for various different reasons. Then the main reason why I'm actually using Waymon is for its inheritable ability, so that way our Digimon's attack target can't be changed, making our Digimon virtually unblockable. Then when it comes to the main level 5 of the deck, that's going to go to the 4 copies of the EX08 MegaSeadramon, because this card is just another combo enabler playing with our EX08 Seadramon. So it has an on-play and when digivolving ability to have one of our Digimon unsuspend. So the idea is we're going to swing with our Seadramon, ideally with jamming, gain that memory, and then digivolve into MegaSeadramon here to be able to unsuspend our Digimon to be able to line up an extra attack. And it also rewards us with doing that because it has its own when attacking ability, where if we have one or more memory, which we reasonably should, one of our opponent's Digimon can't suspend until the end of their turn, stun locking their Digimon while also granting us that extra attack and giving us a purpose for that attack. Then it has the ever so nice inheritable ability where when our higher stages are attacking, once per turn, we get to place one of our other Digimon to the bottom Digivolution source of this Digimon and unsuspend this Digimon so our higher stages can use the wide field that we've been building as extra resources, not only to gain extra inheritables, but to gain extra attacks as well. Then when it comes to the last level 5 of the deck, I'm going to be running 3 copies of the EX3 MegaSeadramon, so I'm literally playing this card just for its name and almost no other purpose. So if you want to run any other MegaSeadramon in its place, by all means do so. I like what this one is doing, because when this card attacks, we get to play a blue level 3 Digimon from one of our Digimon's Digivolution sources for free, which again is really good at being able to build that wide board. And then its inheritable ability allows us to be able to have access at its native ability. It's just limited to once per turn this time, so that way we have ways to be able to split out our Digimon at will, and we have ways to put our Digimon back at will, giving us more flexibility on what we can do. Then when it comes to the level 6s, I'm just going to be running an all Deep Savers lineup, and that's going to be 4 copies of the brand new EX08 Plesiomon. So this card is another combo enabler to allow us to go up into our big boss monster, because when we digivolve into this Digimon, we get to play out a level 4 or lower Digimon from its Digivolution source. So we could use this in combination with the Rush Seadramon to spit it out and gain access at Rush and swing right away with it. It really doesn't matter what we're splitting out, it's just we need that extra body because that plays into its secondary ability where during your turn, once per turn, when one of our Digimon are played or digivolved, if they have Deep Savers in their trait, 2 of our Digimon can DNA Digivolve into a Digimon with Deep Savers in its trait from our hand, and then that DNA Digivolved Digimon can also attack. So the idea is we're going to be splitting out the level 4, using the level 4 to digivolve into our MegaSeadramon level 5, and then we get to DNA right afterward, so that way we can put as much pressure onto the opponent going into our big boss monster. And then when it comes to the supporting level 6 Digimon, that's going to be going to the 3 copies of MegaSeadramon Ace as a really good defensive backbone. So its on-play and when digivolving ability is really strong, allowing us to de-digivolve one on one of the opponent's Digimon, and then bottom deck a Digimon with a play cost of 7 or lower, which is actually pretty decent at being able to have good not only soft removal, but hard removal all wrapped up into one. Then it even has a nice all turns ability where while you have 1 or more memory, none of your opponent's Digimon can suspend. So again, it just keeps the opponent's Digimon locked down, unable to realistically block us. It does not work, unfortunately, against redirects, so we still have to watch out for that at least. And then when it comes to the big boss monster payout card that we're putting all this effort into, that's going to be the 3 copies of Aegisdramon. So Aegisdramon has lots of different ways that we could use it. Sure, we could digivolve normally, but it has 2 different DNA digivolution conditions. The first one is color-based, using a blue or purple Digimon combined with a black or yellow Digimon, which we have different ways of being able to achieve if we want to line up that way, or we can use its name-based DNA digivolution using a Plesiomon plus a level 5 with Seadramon in its name, which is why we're higher on the Seadramon counts, so we can achieve this name-based DNA a little bit easier. Then it has a really powerful ability when we digivolve up into it, where we get to return up to a 14 play cost worth of cards on the opponent's field to the bottom of their deck, which is really good at board clearing. And then if we DNA'd Digivolved into this Digimon, we also get to create a wider board ourselves by playing up to a total of 12 worth of play cost of Deep Saver traded Digimon from our Digivolution source for free. So it not only does it clear the opponent's field, it also helps build up a wider field of our own. Then it even has a nice All-Turns ability where while we have one or more memory, none of our Deep Savers traded Digimon are affected by the opponent's Digimon effects, which is really powerful and realistically the only form of protection that the deck has, but we do have to keep in mind it only works while we have one or more memory, so it's not likely to work on the opponent's turn. And it also doesn't stop options, it just stops Digimon. And then the other part to this ability is while we have one or less memory, it acts as a really good floodgate where none of the opponent's Digimon can activate their on-play effects, so it really can help stop and limit what the opponent is able to do in specific matchups. So, unfortunately, I don't really have any deck space for Tamers, but our options are going to be good enough at basically acting as our Tamers, because this is going to be where the resource engine kind of is, because there's no better resource engine than 4 copies of Mental Training, 2 copies of Blue Memory Boost, and 2 copies of Blue Scramble to be able to accomplish whatever we need and try to make our cards as cheap and efficient as possibly can while having good consistency added into the deck. And then the only other option that I'm going to be running is going to be 2 copies of the Deep Savers option. So similarly to Nature Spirits and also Nightmare Soldiers, we can put this card into our security as the bottom card face up to be able to gain access at its security ability where during all turns, while we have one or more memory, none of our Deep Savers traded Digimon can be deleted in battle, so it is adding some extra protection, while also having a very relevant security ability to be able to play out a level 5 or lower Deep Savers traded card from our hand for free, which could help set up some extra defense because then we have that level 5 to be able to ace with. So it's just a very good versatile option that's just helping the deck's flow and functionality. And for the most part, that's my interpretation of the deck, and I do know that there's a couple of different ways that we can build the deck because of all of the different traits and colors that it's playing around with. And like I said, it's not like these are the only cards that are usable, because we do have various other tech and tools that we could use depending on what cards you have access to, what you want to play and prioritize, and the expected meta you're going to be playing up against. And it's not like this deck is going to be dead in the water when it comes to potential future upgrades, because we do know the deck is at least going to be getting some extra support to help vary what the deck is capable of and all of the different ways that we can approach building it. But feel free to tell me your thoughts about the deck down in the comments below, and while you're down there, you might as well leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this type of content and want to see more, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can also stay up to date when my videos go live next. And with that, I hope to see everyone in the next video.